how'd you end up falling in love with Chesterton?
I started reading Chesterton like anybody on my honeymoon. And, you're already kind of in a good mood on your honeymoon, right? And I was with my wife. She was along with me. And, yeah, but, I was a Baptist at the time and was not thinking at all like a Catholic. I didn't even know Chesterton was a Catholic when I started reading him. All I knew is that I'd encountered a writer unlike any I'd ever encountered. He has something to say about everything, and he generally says it better than anybody else.
What did you mean by he not only loved his enemies, but he convinced his enemies to love him?
He's taking on the modern thinkers of his day, and he's not trying to crush them at all. He's trying to convert them. His intellectual and philosophical enemies were his personal friends. George Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells, not a good man, not a good person. Yet they spent weekends together at each other's homes. And when Chesterton died, H.G. Wells said to Frances, Gilbert's widow, if there's any chance of me getting into heaven, it's going to be because I was a friend of G.K. Chesterton.
Before we start today's episode, I want to tell you about a sponsor that I have handpicked for this show. Ashley and I have a large family. And once your teens start getting cell phones, man, I tell you, that cell phone bill is not small. That got me thinking about where the money goes. We're called to be good stewards, and the reality is that many large corporations put profits towards causes that simply don't reflect our Catholic convictions. Well, ICATHOLIC Mobile gives us another option. They are a family-oriented Catholic phone company that gives 100% of their profits to traditional Catholic religious orders, monasteries, and Catholic media. Imagine that. Every time you use your phone, you're supporting a traditional Catholic community. It's amazing. Meanwhile, you still get your same nationwide 5G coverage. You keep your phone number, which is important, and you get personal customer support. They've also set up something for our listeners. Mention the Conor Gallagher show when you call, and you'll receive 1 month of the TAN digital app for free, plus a free copy of The Once and Future Roman Rite by my favorite, Dr. Peter Kwasniewski. Give them a call at 802-988-6588 or visit icatholicmobile.com. Look, if you're paying this bill anyway, why not let it do some good for the Catholic faith? The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Dale Ahlquist, thanks for being with us, man.
What a pleasure, Conor. God bless you.
Oh, man. So I met you first, I think it was like, I've been trying to think, it's about 15 years ago.
At least.
And you're going to hear this tonight at the Belmont Abbey banquet that we're going to, where you are receiving the Benedict Leadership Award for Catholic leadership. And I'm going to start with this story, which I've told you before, but I think it's good to start here. So it's about 15 years ago. And we were at a conference together, and I was on the elevator, and you stepped on the elevator. And I thought I was kind of humorous. I said, so Dale, give me the elevator pitch for why Chesterton should be canonized. And you waited a moment, letting the anticipation build. And you said, because Chesterton not only loved his enemies, but he convinced them to love him. And the elevator went ding, the doors opened, and you walked off. And it closed, and I said, man, that's it right there. That's it right there. I was like, oh, so not only then did I realize why Chesterton is such a great man, but I also realized why that makes you like the absolute perfect mouthpiece and apostle of Chesterton in the modern world. So that's why you're getting this great award tonight. But anyway, I'm real honored to have you here. So yeah, that's it.
Good. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Conor.
See you later. That's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
So, maybe a good way to start is, what do you mean by that? What did you mean by he not only loved his enemies, but he convinced his enemies to love him? That's a great way to start a Chesterton conversation.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great way to start. Chesterton did debate a lot. and he was a controversialist in every sense of the word. He took on subjects that had two sides of it, and the side he took was often the unpopular side. Kind of goes back to one of his great lines from Everlasting Man: "The dead thing can go with the stream, only the living thing can go against it." And often he was the one living thing going against the trends of his times, going against the modern currents, trying to stand up for a truth that not only has proved to be right, standing up for tradition that is often waylaid, but going against the fads and the fashions, right? And so he's taking on the modern thinkers of his day, and he's not trying to crush them at all. He's trying to convert them. The whole point of loving our enemies is we want them to join our side. We want them to betray their own side.
Yeah.
But we have to do that with love. You have to have the right argument, but you also have to have the right motivation. And if your motivation is to humiliate your enemy, that's all they're going to remember is that they were humiliated. And they're not going to think better of you for humiliating them.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other great achievements of Chesterton is that his enemies were his friends. I mean, his intellectual and philosophical enemies were his personal friends. George Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells, a good list of the leading intellectuals of the early 20th century. And they wanted to be his friends. They enjoyed his company. And they knew he wasn't going to judge them or put them down. And they wanted the privilege of arguing with him. They wanted to go into the arena with him. And H.G. Wells, not a good man, not a good person. Yet they spent weekends together at each other's homes. And Chesterton just did not judge this guy. And when Chesterton died, H.G. Wells said to Frances, Gilbert's widow, "If there's any chance of me getting into heaven, it's going to be because I was a friend of G.K. Chesterton."
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we don't really do that in today's world. Like, if we're on the wrong side of the liturgical wars, or if you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican, we're not having dinner together. I mean, usually, right? And so, that's a reason he's a patron for something. Like, if you called him the patron of what would it be?
Well, we could make a long list, Conor, there, but let's talk about debate. He could be the patron of debate.
Yeah.
I think he's certainly a patron of converts,
Yeah.
a patron of writers. How about controversialists?
Yeah, that's good. How did he do it? Because when I am frustrated with somebody or something, or I'm reading something, or I see some cleric in the news making me angry. Well, first, right there, did it make him angry? Like, when he read these stupid modernist things, did he get angry, or did he just kind of chuckle and write his way around it? I mean, how did it affect his soul, do you think?
Yeah, he was an incredibly patient man, but when something got him going, he would write eloquently about it. He was inspired to fire off strong words, but even so, they didn't have a hard edge to him. He would take apart a bad argument without attacking the person. Yeah. He's only attacking the argument and not the person.
Do you have any idea what his wife said about him? I mean, I read the biography that on her.
Yeah.
But what was he like outside of pen and paper? Was he a joyful guy with her? Did he sit around and was he smoking his cigar and just grouchy at night because of all the craziness? What was he like as a man?
Yeah, so all of the eyewitness accounts portray him as being very jovial, very loving, that he wrote exactly the way he talked the way he wrote. And so there were not two different personalities there, yeah. the public one and the private one. He was capable of being grouchy like anybody else, except he was mostly joyful most of the time. That was always the great impression. And so that's why you're always struck when someone did find him in a bad mood, because it's such a rare occurrence.
Yeah. So let's back up. I know you've been asked all these questions a million times, but I guess that's your deal. So you kind of have to keep getting asked.
Yeah. So if you have that million selling hit,
Yeah.
you got to sing it a million times, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's the payback.
Yeah. So, how'd you end up falling in love with Chesterton?
Yeah, I've never told this story.
No, sorry. It's like I can't come up with a unique question. I'm going to try.
Well, I started reading Chesterton like anybody on my honeymoon.
Yeah, that's right. I have heard that before. I now remember you saying this. Okay. I'm sorry. That's funny.
It's okay. Yeah. So, like all people, I read Chesterton on my honeymoon, and you're already kind of in a good mood on your honeymoon, right? And I was with my wife; she was along with me, and
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm reading Chesterton. I'm in a really good mood, so that's when the love started.
That's right. Oh, gosh. Oh man. All right. I wonder if anybody ever reads Chesterton for the first time, like when they're waiting for their divorce to come through.
Yeah, they haven't contacted me, but I have an email address if they want to let me know. Yeah, but I was a Baptist at the time and was not thinking at all like a Catholic, and I didn't even know Chesterton was a Catholic when I started reading him. In fact, that didn't occur to me for a long time. All I knew is that I'd encountered a writer unlike any I'd ever encountered. I've called him the apostle of common sense. I've called him the complete thinker. Both those things struck me right away when I started reading Chesterton. Common sense and a really connected way of thinking. He wrote about everything, but he put it all together. And I was used to writers who wrote about one thing at a time. And because most writers actually are quite narrow, if you think about it. They have their specialty. That's what they write about. Yeah. Chesterton's specialty is everything.
Yeah.
He's truly the great generalist, and he has something to say about everything, and he generally says it better than anybody else.
Hey guys, real quick, we noticed 80% of you that watch the episodes are not subscribed. So please do me the favor and subscribe and hit the bell for notification. That helps you get the content, but it also helps this amazing stuff get spread to other people just like you. Thanks for your help. Now let's dive back in. All right, so here's a question that maybe people haven't asked you at least as much. That's my challenge now. I was, in prepping for this, I'm like, I don't know how, I can't prep for this. But what I should have done is I should have said, let's come up with 10 questions that no one's asked Dale before. That's what I should have done.
Oh.
But maybe that'll be episode 2 someday. Who knows? Okay. But we know a lot about Chesterton's writing. I even remember in reading, like, he sometimes would publish 2 articles a day. Like, he'd write something in the morning and then another one in the afternoon and handing it to the postman, who's coming by. If you write as much as he did, and he's one of the most prolific writers in the history of the world, definitely one of the top in the English language, how did he have time to read? So when you get so knowledgeable to where you can write about so many people, do you know anything about his reading habits?
Yeah, he obviously read a lot as a young man and really absorb texts. And he obviously was a genius, right? But he could absorb a text once he'd read it. He could recite pages of it from memory.
Oh wow! Okay, so he might have had a photographic memory.
Yeah, possibly. There was something going on there. So he really could get a lot out of a book from. But then there's these readers who can get the gist of a book without reading the whole book. They can, and of course the joke about his book on Thomas Aquinas, he said, I know as much of he said, I've read as much of Thomas Aquinas as I've has of the encyclopedia. But he probably did read a lot of the encyclopedia. Right, but the point is, he really hadn't read the Summa Theologica. Right. And Evelyn Waugh said all he did was run his fingers across the bindings and absorbed everything that was in it. Oh. I don't think it's quite that simple, but he really has such a deep sense of St. Thomas's thinking that when he writes about him, he's drawing from the same well. Mm-hmm. and thinks like him.
I read the Dumb Ox not too long ago, as in like the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Which was, because I read it years ago. There's a whole nother story about why I returned to it. And yeah, it's not like a detailed biography, but he does hit like the nucleus of Aquinas' philosophy and theology on being and reality.
Yeah.
Like he does nail the core.
And it does it just in short chapters. I mean, he sum ups the Summa
Yeah.
in one chapter.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's the best one-volume treatment of Thomistic philosophy there is. In fact, that's what the leading Thomist in the world said at the time, Etienne Gilson.
Yeah.
He said it's the best book ever written on Thomas Aquinas. So he clearly read, but he didn't read to the great extent that he you would imagine. His favorite reading was detective stories. He'd read those for amusement, and so he would just gobble those up. But he didn't read a lot of theology.
Yeah.
He read literature mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that somehow or another, he developed this incredible set of principles to which he could gauge modern ideas coming at him.
Yeah.
All right. And that just enabled him to navigate kind of through any issue.
Yeah. Ask me about, did he read Newman? Ask me that question.
All right. So Dale, one of the things I was wondering in preparing for this is, did he ever read Newman?
Are we talking about Alfred Newman, the cover of Mad Magazine, or which Newman are we talking about?
I don't know. Either one.
Okay.
Either one.
I think he's less familiar with the Mad Magazine guy, but the
Cardinal
Cardinal,
Newman?
now Saint, now Doctor.
Yeah.
So he wrote very little about him. He wrote about 3 essays on Newman, right? And shows great perception. And some people argue that he gets some of his own arguments from Newman. And he does represent, Newman's the great English convert of the 19th century. Chesterton's certainly the great English Catholic convert of the 20th century. But he was once addressing a public meeting and talked about Newman at this meeting. And in the Q&A period, someone says, Newman never said that. And Chesterton started laughing. He said, oh, no. He said, you're not going to catch me on Newman. And then proceeds to quote verbatim about 5 paragraphs from Newman.
Oh, wow.
Out of his head to demonstrate the point that he was making. That Newman did say exactly the thing he said. So, the question is, did he read Newman? Yeah, he did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, if I recall, Dickens was one of his favorite novelists. Tell me about that. Why? Was his love of distributism that kind of like saw the corruption of industrial capitalism, and the poor guy was crushed? I mean, is that what it was, or something else?
I think it was just the opposite. I think he loved Dickens, and then he saw that distributism really fit right in with the Dickensian view of the world. That the big industrialism had crushed the common man. And that the natural reaction against that was socialism, which was the wrong reaction. There had to be something else, and it had to be small ownership. And that's what, and he says, Dickens represents the common man. Chesterton always represented the common man, both in his thinking and defending him for his dignity and his self-sufficiency, right? Yeah. So, but his love of Dickens is very deep and wide, and he obviously grew up reading Dickens, and Dickens was starting to fade from the public mind. He was certainly the most popular of all English writers in the 19th century, and popular in America too, right? But his star was starting to fade in the early 20th century, and Chesterton wrote a book on Dickens that basically created a revival of interest in Dickens, and it's because he says he's such a writer of hope. He even in his most tragic and pathetic characters, there's always this feeling of hope. There's something that will get us out of this. And in his opening introduction to the book on Dickens, he says, abandon all hopelessness, you who enter here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It makes me want to read the biography of
I think
Dickens.
it's one of his most underrated books and needs to be read by more people.
Really?
Yeah. You don't have to read Dickens to enjoy the book.
That's the thing is like, for some reason, I've always had a tremendous weakness with fiction. I just don't read fiction much. And it's funny, my wife is the exact opposite. Like, she loves fiction, and she reads Dickens, and she reads Jane Austen, and she reads Tolstoy. Like, she kind of reads some what today would be considered like highbrow, And she follows the narrative of these characters and everything so well. And somebody like Tolstoy, you need like, a glossary of people. But when I do that, I forget the storyline, and I like a nonfiction where it's kind of like chapter 1, chapter 2, like a little bit more organized. Nonfiction I'm able to jump back and forth and pick part of what I want. I can just jump to chapter 5 and like I can gut the book. Yeah. I can gut it, like kind of like you were talking about. Chester didn't necessarily have to read a book all the way through. Right. So I call it gutting. And I have like my own little system for like gutting a book. But you can't really do that with a novel. That's not what a novel's for. You're meant to go on that journey. So other than just reading philosophy, theology, history, I love biographies. I love them. And I've read biographies on Chesterton, of course, by our friend Joseph Pierce, which is amazing. Yeah. But I'm going to sit down and read the Dickens biography. I probably like Chesterton's book on Dickens more than I would actually like Dickens, I would think.
Yeah, well, his biographies are not like anybody else's biographies. So just like that Thomas Aquinas one, he'll give you some of the facts of his life, but he'll get inside of his thinking. And he leads you through his brain is what he does.
That's what he does.
And with Dickens, he'll take you through the great works of literature that Dickens wrote, and you'll go inside those books, but it's not that you'll care about the book so much as you'll care about the basic truths that he's telling about democracy and the love of the common man and about hope. And those are the inspiring things that you're getting when you're reading his book on Dickens.
Yeah. So when you meet somebody, given you've dedicated so much of your life to Chesterton Academies, Chesterton Society, when you meet somebody and they're like, hey, so what do you do? What do you say? Like when somebody says, oh, what do you do for a living? You say what?
Yeah, I just make something up.
The CIA? What do you say?
So I try to direct them to my lapel.
Yeah.
I usually have some image of Chesterton is always on my lapel, whether it's this one or a different one or something.
It's a good one.
Yeah, and so we start with the lapel. I said, you know who this is right here? And I said, this is G.K. Chesterton. So who's that? He's the greatest writer of the 20th century. And he wrote about everything. And you know what? I'm an expert on Chesterton, so that makes me an expert on everything.
That's awesome. Who was the professor, the world expert on everything? What was that guy's name? Do you have any idea? Google that guy, Kevin. If you say the professor whatever, world expert on everything, something like that. But he had this whole comic thing where he'd go around saying, I'm an expert on everything.
Yeah.
But all right, so then people say, okay, so what does that really mean?
Yeah. So, I will not only get into the fact that he was a great Catholic writer, but that I've also started a Catholic high school that has grown into a major network of
71
schools.
High schools.
So I usually get that into the conversation too when I'm asked what I do for a living. And when people, they say, well, that's interesting that you have an interest in this dead Englishman, but how many schools are in this network? That's a good conversation.
Yeah, I bet
right?
that is. Yeah. All right, so that's how you answer about yourself. But then when somebody says, well, okay, tell me more about Chesterton, like he wrote on everything. What do you mean? And then like, how do you explain him to somebody who's never heard him before?
Sure. You find out if they've heard of C.S. Lewis. If they have, then there's a good angle right there because Chester was so influential on C.S. Lewis. Incredibly influential. You can pick up any book by C.S. Lewis, and I can tell you probably where he got that idea from G.K. Chesterton.
Wow. Wow.
And then you also go the Father Brown route. Most people have heard of Father Brown. They've seen the television show or something. And so he created this fictional detective, Father Brown. Right?
Yeah.
And so you talk about his influence on other people. But I said he's also very, very witty and very quotable. And then you reel off some good Chesterton quotes. And that, I like that one. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. In fact, when I was coming back from Australia once, the Border Patrol guy says, so what were you doing in Australia? And he's as sleepy as I am, right? I said, I was giving a talk on this guy right here, on G.K. Chesterton. Oh, yeah? Who is Chesterton? I said, he was a great writer. Well, tell me something Chesterton said. And I said, angels can fly because they can take themselves lightly.
So lightly, wow.
And he said, you made my day. That's great.
I love that. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
And that is, that quote, which I misquote slightly, but I say it all the time. It kind of summarizes Chesterton.
Mm-hmm.
He took himself lightly, and he soared.
Yeah. And he's been described as a tower of humility, which I think is a wonderful image too. He's big, but he's humble. He makes himself small.
Yeah.
And when we take ourselves lightly, we can do great things. Yeah.
Jesus only said, "Learn of me" one time, and it was because I'm meek and humble of heart. He didn't say because I'm smart or anything. It's because I'm meek and humble of heart. And Chesterton was.
Yeah, he was.
He was meek and humble. And you only are meek. You can't be meek if you're weak. You can only be meek if you have a great power that you could unleash, but choose not to.
You're absolutely right, Conor. That's the way we demonstrate our strength is by restraining ourselves. That's the great demonstration of strength, is restraint.
Yeah. Yeah, and Chesterton did that.
Yeah.
He could have torn his enemies apart.
Yes, he could have.
Far worse than he did, And, I realized that he wasn't trying to make his enemies lose. He wasn't trying to win an argument. He was trying to win a man.
Yeah, he's trying to win them over to his side.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so you end up reading his stuff on your honeymoon, which is a great start to a marriage. And then how do you end up getting into a Chesterton Society? Like, how does it become your job to where you actually make money?
Sure. Well, I still have to figure out how to make money, but
Okay.
Yeah, this is not one of those get-rich seminars here. So I continued reading Chesterton for the next 16 years until he brought me to the door of the Catholic Church. So it was a 16-year conversion process.
What did you do for a living then?
I was in real estate development for about 11 years, and then I was a lobbyist for about 6 years.
Were you really?
Yeah.
A lobbyist.
Yeah, so think of the two lowest vocations.
I was about to say, Chesterton's, would he be rolling in his grave that his great champion was a lobbyist?
Well, we should go and examine the grave.
Let's go do it.
Let's go find out.
Let's go. Okay, sorry.
Right. So yeah, but it was during those lobbying years that's when I was really on the process of becoming Catholic. I was moving closer and closer to the Catholic Church and moving towards starting the Chesterton Society. And my conversion and starting the Chesterton Society happened at about the same time. And I was just keeping the Chesterton Society going on the side. It was just mostly a hobby. It was a literary society, right? We're just trying to get people interested in Chesterton, get people to read Chesterton, get his works better known. When I started reading Chesterton, Conor, in 1981, only 6 of his books were in print.
Oh, my God.
Think about that. Only 6 of his books were in print. And now there's well over 80 are in print now, and then there's more, coming out with, new collections of essays and things like that were never published as books during his lifetime. So it's an incredible explosion of revival,
Yeah.
But so we're just getting the Chesterton Society started at that point, and then I was invited to do a show on EWTN.
Oh yeah.
And that was, I'd only been a Catholic for 3 years at that point. But it started because Marcus Grodi reached out, and it's amazing. The week before he contacted me, my own spiritual advisor said to me, "Have you ever heard of The Journey Home?" I said, "No, I never heard." "Oh, it's a show about Catholic converts. You should be on it, Dale." I said, "Okay, well that's good to know." The next week,
Wow.
Marcus Grodi reaches out to me because he says, "We want to do a show on classic converts. We want to do a show on G.K. Chesterton. Do you know anybody who could, talk about Chesterton?" I said, "Well, I know one person who could, but I can't give him a very good recommendation." I said, "But, it would be me, but I am a convert myself." And he said, "Oh, you're perfect." So they invited me to do the Journey Home at EWTN. And right after that, that show was aired, the producer comes out of the booth and says, "We need to do a whole series on Chesterton, just based on that one hour because there really is how rich Chesterton is and how he just covers everything. So we put together a proposal for a series, and I did the first series. I taped it in 2000, and then it came out I think in 2001. And as soon as that came out, we really started getting some attention at the Chesterton Society, and so I was at a religious retreat one weekend, and I realized the lobbying thing was drying up. I was done with it anyway, and if I'm going to accomplish anything with this work with Chesterton, I'm going to have to do it full time. And my wife and I talked about it, and she said, well, if we fail, we fail. And so it was basically one day at a time. We had no money to start the organization with. But as soon as the show came on, a lady called, and she said, I'm so glad someone's doing a show on G.K. Chesterton. Chesterton was so important to me. He made me realize that I needed to stay home and raise my family and not go out and work. Wow. It was reading Chesterton, and that was the best decision I ever made. My husband's a retired accountant, and he made a lot of money, but he doesn't control all of it, and I'm going to send you a donation. And that donation that she sent basically was our seed money to start the organization. Wow. We'd already started it, but then the money came in after we'd started it. So you take the step out of the boat, and then you see what happens, right?
Amazing.
Yeah. So.
It's funny, you were a lobbyist, and now you're working on pushing the canonization of G.K. Chesterton. It's kind of a lobbyist.
That lobbying experience maybe wasn't the worst thing.
Yeah.
Sure, it brought me closer to hell, but it wasn't the worst thing that could have happened to me.
You learned how there's a bureaucracy to everything in life.
Yeah.
And now you're working on getting him canonized. I mean, that's probably a good time as any to say what you're doing there. You want to say anything about that?
Sure. I mean,
is it like top secret and you can't say anything?
No, the whole story is pretty interesting. I should mention an English historian named J.J. Scarisbrick just passed away this last week. There was a nice write-up on him in the Catholic World Report. The reason I mention that is because back in the 90s, I read something that he'd written where he said, G.K. Chesterton should be canonized. He said, the church should seriously consider looking into his cause. And I was still a Baptist when I read that. Conor.
Wow.
And I read that and I said, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I had an epiphany at that moment. I realized what the communion of saints meant. As soon as I saw that.
You saw that. Yeah.
And, there's no place in Baptist theology for the communion of saints. You don't pray to a saint, you pray to God, and you pray to Jesus. You don't pray to a saint. As soon as I read that, I said, oh yeah, saints don't get between you and Christ, they bring you closer to Christ. And when I ask someone to pray for me, which I often do, we all do, well, why wouldn't you ask someone who's in the presence of Christ to pray for you?
Yeah.
And I had no doubt that Chesterton was in the presence of Christ. And I also knew that he was a reflection of Christ, just as he describes St. Francis in his book on St. Francis, that he's the moon and Christ is the sun. He reflects the light of the sun. And you can look directly at the moon. You can't look directly at the sun. You can look directly at a saint and see the light of Christ.
Oh, perfect analogy.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy. And then also, he's a model Christian. He's someone who shows you how to be a Christian, so you can follow him as a model. That's what saints are. They're models. You can follow their example. And I also realized this is all in the twinkling of an eye. I realized this all at once, that every saint has a cultus. And yes. I belong to the cultus of Chesterton, and I was okay with that.
Right. I'm a cult member.
Right.
Yes.
I belong to a cult, everybody. Yeah. And so I thought it was the greatest idea in the world. And back then in the early 90s, there were very few of us who were avid Chestertonians then, and most all of them were Catholic. And they were all saying that would be a bad idea if Chesterton were canonized. They said it would make him too Catholic. He wouldn't appeal to people like Dale here anymore.
Interesting.
And I said, are you kidding? I said, are you kidding? I said, our idea of saints is that they're all barefoot 14-year-old girls. You need more 300-pound cigar-smoking journalists as saints. And then that's going to make the Catholic Church way more attractive.
You're right.
And I said, if you canonize Chesterton, I'll become Catholic.
Whoa.
Oh, and you know what happened? Nothing. So I had to become Catholic through all the normal channels like anybody else. And then to make it even more funny, I was the one who was then leading the way to get Chesterton canonized, which I've been doing for the last 30 plus years.
All right. So what's that like? What is that like? How do you explain the process? What are some of the tactics, some of the specifics that you got to pull off to make it work?
So you start by going to the bishop who would be the one responsible for opening his cause, which in this case would be the Bishop of Northampton, England, because that's where Chesterton is buried. That's where he lived in that diocese. And you say, we think there's evidence here that G.K. Chesterton lived a life of heroic virtue. And he also has a great following, and there already are people praying for his intercession and having their prayers answered. And we think that the church should consider opening his cause so that more people will benefit from his intercession. That's basically the speech right there.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I have met with 3 different bishops of Northampton going back to 2002. And the very first one says, so I don't know much about Chesterton. Tell me about him.
Oh my gosh. He's right in your backyard.
Yeah.
What's the saying that the prophet's never accepted in his own town?
Someone said the prophet's without honor accepted his own country.
Yeah.
I don't know who it was who said that, but he was right.
Yeah. He was right about a couple things.
Yeah. I want to look up that writer because he seems to be right about. But I'll tell you what. So we had some education to do with him, but he was very open to the idea and actually was quite enthusiastic that there was this interest, especially coming from across the Atlantic, right? And I was with some Englishmen who were demonstrating that they were in on this. Well, he did put out the word to start talking up Chesterton in his parishes, and things were, I think, moving along until he got kicked upstairs to be archbishop in an archdiocese somewhere else.
Promotions ruin everything.
Yeah. So then they brought in a new bishop who knew even less about Chesterton. So I began the education process. I began the lobbying process, and I would write to him on a regular basis, not harassing him, but regularly, not too often, and saying, this, and this. And here's another reason. And, it's growing. And then I went and visited him, and I said, we really believe there is a reason for a cause here. And then I had a local fellow in London who also visited him, whose father was the senior deacon in that diocese. So he and his father went to visit the bishop one day, and they said, in England you call the bishop my lord.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I say, so my lord bishop, you say. They said, this is not going to go away. The increase and the devotion to Chesterton is going to only increase. And Dale Ahlquist is getting requests all the time over in America. So he said, well, you tell Dale that I will begin the investigation. I will appoint an investigator. And so that's the first step right there.
Good.
So he did appoint the investigator, a priest who wrote a very, very laudatory report and recommended that the cause be opened. But then subsequently, the bishop still wasn't ready to make the decision, and so he appointed a panel to evaluate with them, and basically they voted 3-2 against, don't open the cause. And he was about ready to retire, and he said, Dale, this will be very disappointing to you, but I've chosen not to open the cause. However, I don't want to stand in the way I'm just not the person who's going to open it. And then he subsequently did retire. And now a new bishop came in, and he was much more enthusiastic and actually knew something about Chesterton. When I went into his office, he had a copy of The Everlasting Man on his desk.
Not bad.
I don't think he's read it, but it was sitting there at least.
Yeah.
He had a good prop there for me.
Yeah, right.
But he said he wants to see the cause opened. He said, I'd love to see Chesterton canonized. He says, but it's not going to be, let's just say, it's not going to be good for me to be the one to open it. But I will assist you in getting it open. So I said, if we can get another bishop to agree to open it, will you pass the competency to that bishop? And he said, absolutely, I'll do anything I can. So he has now done that. Another bishop is getting ready, we believe, to open the cause. Once the cause is open, a postulator is appointed, and as the petitioner, we actually get to choose the postulator because they represent us. They're the ones trying to get this guy brought up to the altar. He would be declared a servant of God when the cause is open, and then a very thorough investigation goes on where his writings have to be evaluated, and we would get a dispensation so that only what he wrote after his conversion.
Yeah, I was about to say that would be a problem.
Well, that's what they did with Newman, who also wrote a lot too.
Okay,
so
perfect. I didn't think that dispensation.
Yeah.
But every word they wrote has to be scrutinized.
Yeah.
So the dispensation would cut that in a lot.
Yeah, I cut it a lot because really only a third of his career he was Catholic.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, but every writing has to be evaluated by both two theologians and one historian.
Oh.
But it doesn't have to be the same group. So it could be a whole committee as long as it all gets read, and then they just write up a brief report on it. And if there's any problems with it, they note that thing. So then they do an investigation of his life, and then there are witnesses called in who attest to his life. And since he would be considered a historical cause as opposed to a contemporary one, like Carlos Acutis, people knew who he was, right? People are alive who knew him. They could testify about him. But with Chesterton, there are no living witnesses anymore. But we have lots of written documentation about his life. So it goes through a big panel, a tribunal, basically, and then they end up making a recommendation to Rome, and then it's taken over by the dicastery for the saints. And then they evaluate everything, and if they give it a positive report, he becomes venerable. And once he's venerable, the next vote comes from heaven, and that's a miracle. And then he's beatified, another miracle, canonized.
Awesome story. That's like a great story.
Yeah.
Now, if all things went swimmingly, how long does it take?
30 days.
It's like, it's better than the DMV.
Yeah.
It's just super quick,
So the good news is we've already done all the preparatory work. I mean, you were starting to be worried about all the writings.
Yeah.
We have it all digitized, and we have copies of all the originals. So nobody has to go to libraries all over the earth to do this research.
You basically have a Chesterton archives?
We have it all ready to go. So
is it like in shoeboxes under your bed? Or is it like, do you have it like, where is this stuff? There's a lot.
There's two places where they are, but everything is in a private home in Königsberg, Norway, because that's what you were thinking, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Good.
No, the Chesterton bibliographer is a Norwegian gentleman named Geir Hasnes.
It really is there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It really is.
Okay.
And
is that where all the originals are? Like you got first editions of things?
He would have first editions of all the books, but we have copies of every original, and then we have a digitized version of it. Yeah.
Right. Wow. So he's the archivist, or what do you call him?
He's the bibliographer. We call him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he has the whole collection, but it's all digitized. So we have it in the computer too.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And this has been a 30-year process, Connor, to put this together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could go rather quickly because
really
a lot of the
could go.
work is done.
Yeah. For a while, I didn't know if the cause would ever be open in my lifetime. Now I'm convinced it could be open within the next year. And then I was thinking, well, he'll never be canonized in my lifetime. No, I think it could be done within 4 or 5 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So then people have to notice to seek a miracle.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to get credit for it, people have to ask for it. I mean, they have to basically know it's from him.
Yeah.
So we got to start spreading that message. Of
Yes, we do. We go to chesterton.org and get a prayer card. You can print one out from our page. Otherwise, we'll send you some. We've probably passed out over 50,000 prayer cards. So there's people asking for his intercession.
Yeah.
And we're getting answers too.
Yeah, it's like, need a miracle? So does he.
Yeah.
You know? So that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a wonderful service you're doing for the church. That's amazing. Make sure to follow @Conor Gallagher Show on Instagram and Facebook. It's there where you can engage with the content much deeper, behind the scenes footage, behind the scenes content. It's going to be fascinating. Now back to the episode. I'm like all over the place here, but I mean, we could go through a couple of his books. I'd kind of like you to talk to us about like his greatest hits. I'd like to get to Belloc because I like him.
That's too bad. No. It's not too bad you like him. That's good. It's just too bad you want to get to him. Okay. We're never going to be able to do that.
I know. Well, give me a little bit about like your greatest hits on Chesterton. I mean, I think of Orthodoxy, Everlasting Man, as like his two, maybe What's Wrong with the World, maybe the top 3. I don't know, but I'm not educated in it. I've read those. They're amazing. Yeah. But what do you say his best hits are?
Yeah, well, Orthodoxy, Everlasting Man would be, I guess, the 2 pillars, right?
Okay.
Orthodoxy, written before his conversion, incredibly, when you read it, you can't believe it's not written by a Catholic.
Yeah.
But because it's not written by a Catholic, a lot of Protestants read it. Chesterton's well loved among Protestants. I was a Protestant when I started reading him and loving him. And, the Wheaton College, a great evangelical school in Wheaton, Illinois, has a whole center devoted to 7 English Christian authors, and Chesterton's one of them.
Oh, wow.
He has a huge following among evangelicals, I think he has the capability of being a real universally appealing writer.
Yeah.
But Orthodoxy is, his description of why he became a Christian. He calls it his slovenly autobiography. How he was his elephantine pursuit of the obvious.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And so he gets to the nature of paradox in that book, which of course paradox informs all of his writings.
Oh, it's like every sentence.
And paradox means the truth that goes against your expectation, but also has to do with the contradictory nature, the apparent contradictory nature that 2 things can both be true, and yet they seem to contradict each other.
Yes.
And that is just the essence of all of our theological understandings. It's the essence of Christ himself, who's fully God and fully man. Right?
Joy on the cross. Like it just goes on.
Right.
And so it's, like when you read Chesterton, you end up saying, well, he writes like everything is upside down,
Yeah.
But then you realize, no, we live in a sinful world. And so most of our perception of things really is upside down, and he's writing it right side up.
Yeah. And he says the best way to look at the world is to see it upside down, because then everything seems to be hanging on the dependence of God.
Oh, nice.
The word depend means to hang.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And if you look at everything upside down, it's as if God could just let go at any minute.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's a great image. And Chesterton with paradox, he gets us to first accept that you have to look at truth paradoxically in order to understand. If you try to focus on just one idea, it leads to madness.
All right, so is it Orthodoxy then, the book, I'm trying to remember that, or Everlasting Man, where he talks about the man in the straitjacket, like the man who's lost everything except his logic? Do you know
that's
what I'm talking about?
Orthodoxy.
Okay.
It's in fact the chapter's called The Maniac.
He says
the man who's lost. He says the madman's not the man who's lost his reason. The madman's the man who's lost everything but his reason.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me.
He says the reason is good, but it has to be supplemented by the creative imagination. So you have to have both both lobes of the brain, as it were, working together. And if one dominates, it is he says it leads to the clean, well-lit prison of one idea. It's a great image, and that's that straitjacket you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can think of things in the church. I can think of certain issues that we deal with, and it's I can look at a position that I actually don't end up agreeing with, but say, yep, they're right. They're right about that. They're right about this and that and that and that all the way down the line. And at the end I say, but they're still wrong. And it's because sometimes the losing side has like this awesome logic to it.
Yeah.
They've been able to distill. And my dad would always say, son, life is larger than logic. He would always say that.
He's right. That's Chestertonian.
Yeah.
He says, Chester says in Orthodoxy, you generally will lose the argument with a madman.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And so that's where it's like, I'm not even going to get into the specifics. Like I got the specifics going through my head, but this could really derail the conversation if I say them. But yeah, it's the madman, they can kind of convince you. It's sort of like you go start talking about these conspiracy theories of people, and it's like the guy with the string, and like the little thumbtacks all over the wall, and he's got pictures, and his conclusion that he reaches is absurd. But his logic is pretty good.
That's right. He got you there. Yeah. And then, of course, the converse of that is the guy who doesn't use any logic at all, who's it's all about feelings and it's all about, just the right image of things. If you just get that right in your head, reason's no good. That's Martin Luther, baby.
Yeah,
he was saying reason's the devil's whore. It's just faith. Well, faith has to be built on reason. They have to go together. And they even though they seem to contradict each other, you have to have both faith and reason.
Well, you're talking about C.S. Lewis. I wonder if that's where C.S. Lewis's little chapter called Men Without Chests. Yeah. I wonder if he was influenced by Chesterton on this. So are you familiar with that one? Yeah. I mean, it's like you have reason, but then you have your gut feelings. But the chest is meant to kind of bring those together. And when you don't, you're one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
I probably butchered it, but that's the general idea.
Yeah, and he, of course, he got it from Chesterton.
Yeah,
I already said that about him.
Oh, you did.
Yeah,
you did.
But another great way Chesterton describes this in Orthodox great image is that you see two different pictures with your eyes. This eye sees a different picture than this eye, and but because we see two different pictures at once, we see better. And he says our spiritual sight is like our physical sight. It's stereoscopic. And that's why we put the two together, and that helps us see better. And that's why the normal man is a sane man, because he's always been a mystic. He sees two things at once, and he can see better. He sees fate and free will. And he has to accept both. And remember, if we don't accept free will, well, nothing makes sense. But the Calvinist doesn't accept free will. It's only predeterminism. If we only accept predeterminism, well, it doesn't make sense. It's a recipe for madness. Yes. But if free will isn't connected to a strong God who's truly is powerful, well, then our decisions don't make any sense either, because we don't have any eternal consequences to our actions, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a lovely image. Yeah.
What about Everlasting Man?
So the Everlasting Man is that's the book I read on my honeymoon.
Is it? Yeah.
And it was because I knew how influential that book was on C.S. Lewis. Remember, I was evangelical. I kept seeing him refer to the Everlasting Man, recommending the Everlasting Man. So that's the first book I picked up. And it is the history of the world between two covers of a book. It's split up like the Bible. It's got its Old Testament or pre-Christian section, and then New Testament or what happens after Christ section. And everything in history hinges on Christ entering this world. And everything about the pagan ancient world is leading to Christ. Everything since Christ is connected, because he puts it all together. And Chesterton brings in history and philosophy and theology and poetry and literature and mythology and everything. That book is a 1-volume classical education.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it sure is. I believe that's the one. Is that in the early part of that he talks about the cavemen?
Yeah, that's right.
And all we know about the caveman is that he was an artist.
Yeah.
I just love that image.
Everybody does. It's so
so
priceless.
Good. Yeah.
And his line, "Art is the signature of man."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like they have these images of the caveman dragging the woman around with hair.
Right.
but all we know is that they painted things on, but then it's awesome because correct me, but he says, we don't even know what those caves were for. Like, were they like nurseries for babies?
Yeah.
Like, were they, like putting little images on the ceiling for babies?
That's
like,
what you do. That's what you do in the nursery. Put animals on the wall, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's such like a beautiful, so he's able to see even a caveman honestly and humbly, as opposed to just buy into whatever caricature has been forced down our throats by archaeologists, by historians, modernists with an agenda.
Yep.
He was able to see things purely as opposed to tainted with everyone else's fingerprints on it. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, that's why I call him the apostle of common sense. So you think about common sense is the truth that the normal person believes to be true, and most normal people believe it to be true. He doesn't even know that he believes it to be true until someone points it out to him. Yeah. And that's what common sense is. And you're right. The strange theories that come out of our institutions of higher learning all defy common sense.
Yeah.
The pop culture defies common sense. And, we wouldn't be dealing with the strange sexual perversions if we just invoked common sense. But to do so is somehow wrong and evil.
Yeah. So everlasting man, Jesus is the everlasting man,
yes,
right? The fulcrum, the pivotal moment in all of history.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So was he Catholic when he wrote that one?
Yes.
Okay. Do we know anything about his spiritual life?
Well, we know that he probably had some mystical experiences.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tell me.
There's some indications in some of his early letters to his friends. Just a line such as, "It's embarrassing to sit down with God face to face as one does with a friend."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, of course, when he writes about St. Francis's mystical experience, he has no basis to write about that unless he'd had something similar. He talks about the mystic goes through the moment when there's nothing but God. Well, how would he know that?
Yeah.
And then he talks about how when the mystic comes out of that experience where there's nothing but God, he then gets to re-experience creation as if the first day of creation, because then suddenly he comes back into the light. He comes back into seeing God's creation as if he's seeing it for the first time. He's present at the first day of creation. Chesterton must have had the same experience himself. He also, the book of the Bible he writes about the most is the book of Job.
Job.
Yeah.
It's my favorite book.
Yeah. It's his favorite book too. He writes, far more about that book than any other book in the Bible. And he writes a lot about Scripture. That's what's really interesting. But, he talks about Job as the prefigure of Christ, but he also talks about Job as the universal story of man. Why is there suffering? Why am I going through this? Everyone's had that experience. Jesus on the cross had that experience, right?
Yes.
And Chesterton says everyone has to have that encounter with God. And it's not that God answers your questions, because what happens with Job? God doesn't answer any of his questions. He says, "Okay, Job, you've asked your questions. Now sit down. I'm going to ask my questions. My first question is, well, first of all, who are you?
Yes.
And then secondly, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?"
Yeah.
And suddenly you're contemplating how everything is so much bigger than yourself, and that maybe God is in control and knows what he's doing, even though you think he's not doing it your way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just recently, I've returned to reading the book of Job like in detail.
Wow.
There's a whole reason for it, but Gregory the Great, who was great, by the way, he wrote 6 volumes on the book of Job.
6 volumes.
6 volumes, and they're all big, thick volumes. It's the biggest commentary by any patristic on anything.
Wow.
Right? It's masterful, and he takes every stinking line of Job,
Sure.
and he says, here's the literal meaning of Scripture, here's the allegorical, here's the more. And he just like walks through the 4 senses of Scripture.
Great.
And so I bought the whole thing, and been thumbing through it, but I did an interesting little experiment. Like the first part of the book of Job, it lists Job had 5,000 camels and 3,000 sheep, or he goes through these numbers. I just messed up the numbers, but they're listing his riches, right? So I just sat down with Chat GPT and I was like, okay, at this time in history, if you had these amount of camels and this amount of sheep and all these different things, and I put in how much was this worth? How wealthy was the guy? And the scripture actually says, well, he was one of the most, one of the greatest men in the East. So he was really rich, but he was worth, like, in today's dollars, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So this dude was loaded, right? And then it all comes crashing down like overnight. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I understand, I've heard that Chesterton, this was his favorite book. The thing I think I know why Chesterton loved it so much is because Job said, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Like, he didn't stop praising God despite all of this stuff. And he doesn't say, "The Lord giveth and the devil taketh away." He says, "The Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." And, Chesterton just seemed to be somebody who saw the hand of God at work through all of these things. And so when you don't really get all that angry with sin and other people's shortcomings or losing your own goods or, your own suffering, when you know that God's doing it. He's doing it. And even Job's wife was pestering him to curse the Lord and die, curse God and die, but he just keeps going. He wants some answers, and he tries to get them and he doesn't get them. Everything's restored to Job when Job finally shuts up. At the end, when he finally shuts up, God gives him everything. So it makes sense to me that Chesterton really loved this guy, not just because there was suffering, but because he knew, and I think Job knew, and I think Chesterton knew, that God was in control of all of this suffering. That's why Chesterton would have loved it so much.
Well, that's where he gets it, where he talks about, it's from a Father Brown story. So we're only looking at the back side of the tapestry. It's a great image. We don't see what the picture of God is forming.
And it's all kind of weird looking. Yeah.
But it's that realization from Job that even though he doesn't, as Chesterton says, God has answered none of his questions, and yet Job is satisfied.
Yeah.
First of all, God has spoken to him. That's a start.
That's pretty
right?
good, yeah.
But he also, what does God decide to tell him? Hey, look at the world I made. And he starts to describe his own creation to Job as if he himself was in awe of it. He said, have you ever looked at Leviathan, which I made? Have you ever really looked at Behemoth, which I made? And can you believe it? Isn't it the most amazing creature you've ever seen? God is enjoying his own creation in front of Job.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And Job realized at the end, I think if he could do all that stuff, he's probably got things under control. And he puts his hand over his mouth. That's how it ends.
Yes.
And as Chesterton says, the riddles of God are more satisfying than the solutions of man.
Oh, man, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Wow. Okay, we should publish like a Bible study of Job by Chesterton. That'd be good.
All right.
That's
well,
good.
If you know any publishers.
All right. Yeah, I'll look around. I'll let you know if I find one. All right. That's awesome. Okay, so I don't know.
So we were going through the books
how did we get on Job? I can't remember.
Because we got there.
Yeah.
So the paradoxes are in all of his books, but Orthodoxy and the Everlasting Man, I would say the two pillars. You mentioned What's Wrong with the World. I think that's a very important book. It kind of lays out what the big criticisms are of the modern world. I just think it's four things. This is 1910. Big government, big business, feminism, and public education.
Man, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
Goodness gracious.
Right. And so what he's talking about there is as true now as it was then. Yeah.
He would be scandalized, though, about how big the government's gotten and how big big for him was not like it is for us, right?
Yeah,
he was complaining about department stores starting. Like, it was hard for him to envision Amazon.
But yet he saw it coming because that's where it's going to lead. It'll always lead to that.
further and further consolidation.
Yeah, that's how it ends.
Yeah.
It ends like a game of Monopoly. His whole newspaper, GK's Weekly, was just to try to make people aware of the danger of monopoly.
So I say this a lot whenever I get into a distributist conversation. I always say to people, and I ask them, and everyone gets it wrong.
Yeah.
I say, what is the objective of the game Monopoly? You've all played it. What's the objective of the game? And everyone says, well, to make as much money as you can, or even they might even say to buy up all the property. No, the way you win is by bankrupting your opponent. Like, even if you own every single piece of property, until they have no dollars, game's still on.
Game's still on.
That's the point of the game,
when
is
that guy
to ruin the other
still owns
person.
Baltic Place, he's still in there, baby.
Yeah. So it's like, but a light bulb goes off with them. It's like, oh, the game is not to improve yourself. The game is to ruin the other person. That's a big difference, and I think Chesterton saw that with Monopoly.
He totally saw it, and so that's why he's so prophetic. And he says it's not that it's big government against big business; it's that they're in it together.
Yeah, for sure.
They're totally, and his aggravating insight is that communism and capitalism basically achieved the same thing, which is everybody's a wage slave, whether you're working for the government or for just one corporate owner. It's one small minority paying everybody else.
I say constantly, I can't call myself a capitalist because the language of the church, including Frank Sheed and Christopher Dawson and Fulton Sheen and Chesterton and Belloc and all of these people, and Leo the 13th,
right?
And we have this language of capitalism being a condemned economic philosophy that's all through papal documents and whatnot and the greatest thinkers. Now, the fact is that, there is a semantical issue, right? I mean, today it basically means libertarianism.
Right.
And so I cannot be a libertarian, but I still don't want to say I'm a capitalist because I'm kind of breaking with the terminology of the past.
Yeah.
So, I mean, our economy today, our quote unquote capitalism today, is filled with all kinds of regulation, too much. But back then in the Industrial Revolution, Chesterton was looking at capitalism, as the whole church was, of incredible atrocities being committed against people, how they worked, working conditions of children. I mean, you're here, Dale, in Gastonia, and all of these little brick buildings or big brick buildings around here were mills. They were textile mills. And you go back to Chesterton's time, there was, or even after that, there was no laws protecting the little guy. They got no vacation time. They had something called stretch weeks, where it's they had to work. They got a job making a certain weekly wage, and then they'd have to work 12 hours a day, and then they have to start working Saturdays. They were worked like dogs. Little kids were coming in, getting their hairs pulled out by the machines. Little fingers having to go up to they got little kids to work in there because their hands could fit up into the spinners and the weavers and all of these machines. It was horrible what was going on. And so these damn libertarians that say government has nothing to do with the free market, I'm just saying, think about what you're just saying. This is the role of government appointed by God Almighty is to help protect human beings from other human beings, just like it has to protect us from enemies in other countries. So we need regulations to keep people safe, to be fair to everybody, and that is not socialism, for goodness sakes.
Right. But,
sorry, I just went off.
No, you're absolutely. But the whole point was that the reaction against capitalism was socialism because it was because we have to correct these problems. Well, we can't have all government either. See, that's the problem.
Right. Exactly.
So Chesterton says government's an ugly necessity, but you have to have laws and you have to have people to enforce those laws. He tries to point out that the word polis, which is the word for city, the word police comes from that, but so does the word polite. It's about civilized behavior. That's what it is. A city is civilized, and the policeman who enforces the law is trying to just enforce polite behavior and to encourage polite behavior.
Yes.
Politeness is a policeman, he says.
Nice. Nice. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah. So, so Chesterton and Belloc came up with you wanted to bring up Belloc.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, who influenced who?
Yeah, so Belloc influenced Chesterton
That's
on
what I
this
thought.
issue.
That's what I thought.
Because Belloc was the Catholic who was familiar with the encyclical and basically brought that to Chesterton.
Rerum Novarum.
Yeah, Rerum Novarum.
1891.
Right. Yeah, 1891. And so, it all boils down to what Leo said. The solution is for more workers to become owners.
Owners, yeah.
And if you had widespread ownership, you'd have a more stable society.
Right.
And it would be based not on the individual, which is what capitalism is all individual rights, not on all community rights, which is communism. Be based on the family,
Yes.
which is what ownership's about. It's about the home,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so a society that supports the family and has a strong family unit and regards family rights as superior to individual rights and superior to community rights, that's going to be a strong civilization. That's Western civilization right there.
So when I try to explain distributism, of course people hear redistributivism.
Right.
I mean, that's what they hear.
Yeah.
So I try to say, no, it just means they have this fancy terms like, the means of production are distributed throughout society. All that means is basically small business.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship,
in a nutshell.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like they wanted an economy based on a bunch of small businesses, and guess who else wanted that? Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
So this is not like
right.
a new thing. That's about the only thing I like about Jefferson, because he was a mess the rest of the time.
Yeah,
but he did believe in small local business.
Yeah,
so.
he had an image for democracy that really captured Chesterton's imagination too. I will say we have been wrestling with that term distributism for a long time, so we came up with a new word.
Okay.
We have come up with a new word.
All right.
And that word is, zoom in, have a drum beat, localism.
There you go.
Localism explains it, right? As soon as you say localism, people go, that makes sense.
Right.
Because you want to keep your business local, keep your dollars local, keep your government local.
That's it.
Chesterton says, keep your politician close enough to kick him. But the same is keep your dollars close enough so that they're serving the community. Because if all your money is flying out of the community to a huge corporation, that's not good for the locals, right?
That's powerful just to get the right word.
Yeah, yeah. And so people are starting to use the word. We came out with a book called Localism.
I remember, yeah. I got it. I own it.
Yeah, and so it's starting to catch on, and so we can not get caught into that struggle trying to explain distributism anymore.
Yeah.
We could say localism. People will resonate with that. And what's the most local thing, Connor?
The family.
The family.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's amazing. All right.
So,
since you were on Belloc, I really enjoyed.
No, I wasn't on Belloc.
Yeah.
No.
we were getting.
I wasn't on Belloc.
We were getting. there.
We were talking about his most important books. That's what we were talking about.
All right, we can keep going. You got more. You got more.
You tried to take. You heard me say the word Belloc. He said, "Oh, now we're going to talk about Belloc." No, no. We're still talking about the other question.
Okay, all right. How many other books you want to talk about?
Well, how much more time do we have?
As long as you want.
Well, when the time comes to stop talking, then I'll stop talking about the books.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough. It's episode 2 on Belloc.
Right.
Okay.
So the next 2 important books are the 2 books on the saints, St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Francis of Assisi. So he wrote them the other direction.
Yeah.
So St. Francis was the first book he wrote after his conversion. That's his first Catholic book.
Yeah. Okay.
And it turns out he had a lifelong devotion to Francis. He was always, Chesterton says Francis was always present in his life. And Francis is truly one of the universal saints. Everybody likes St. Francis, right?
Yeah.
Well, Chesterton brings out the points about him that most people don't think about. Like he's not a lover of nature. He's a lover of creation, which is different from loving nature, right? He's a lover of creation because he's a lover of God's creatures. And creation isn't an abstract thing. He loves every creature that God has made. They're his brothers and sisters. And that's a wonderful insight. Here's another one from Orthodoxy. He says, nature is not our mother. Nature is our sister because we both have the same father.
Oh, yeah.
That's a much better view of nature, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then he talks about, I've already mentioned his insights into Francis's mysticism. But then there's also the idea of thanks. And and this goes back to Job as well. Chesterton says thanks are the highest form of thought.
Yes.
If we're always thankful, we just don't have time to get upset about other things. And we don't demand things. We don't think about our rights. We think about what's coming to us. We don't deserve anything. And that's what you get. Francis, complete vow of poverty. Everything's a gift. Everything's a gift. And Chester says the man who's truly thankful is always trying to pay back the debt that he can never pay. And he says he's always throwing things into the bottomless pit of unfathomable thanks.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
That's really good. I have not really seen poverty in that way before.
Yeah.
That's really, really good.
So then there's the book on Thomas Aquinas.
Can I tell you where I was when I first read St. Francis' book?
Yeah.
I was at Charlotte Catholic High School, and I was in school detention for like the 10th time, to where they did not want me in the classroom. So our dean of students had like this detention room, and I was sentenced there to like solitary confinement for a couple days. And I came in and I brought St. Francis of Assisi biography by G.K. Chesterton, and for 2 days I just sat there and read that.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a terrific story.
It's true.
Oh, yeah, you'll never forget that.
No, I won't.
That'll be forever.
It was great. Yeah.
Oh, great.
And I was in that detention because I was nothing like Chesterton, and I couldn't stand these liberal, dumb, modernist, weak, lukewarm Catholic teachers that you don't have at Chesterton academies. But they were driving me so crazy. I was so angry and frustrated with them.
Sure.
So I was having fights with my teachers about all kinds of stuff. I mean, the stuff I heard in religion class was just totally absurd. I mean, like one my religion teacher literally sat there and argued that there's no real historical evidence, even in Scripture, that Jesus was a man, because she could have been a woman, but the writers just went back and changed she to he. And I said, what about the circumcision? But she wanted to ignore that one.
No, wait a minute. She might have been onto something there. I've never thought of that before.
Oh man, we could have missed this all along. I mean, it's like, gosh. So I was just like, I was so frustrated. I was always picking a fight with them because I was saying, this is so dumb. This one of the nuns that was teaching me this, I just raised my hand and I said, why don't you just go and become Protestant? That's what you want to do. So just go do it. Just go do it. And she's like, get out. Get out.
Yeah, because that's a good answer, right?
I was like,
yeah.
I was like, then you don't have to struggle anymore. Just go over there and be free.
Shut up, he explained. Yeah.
So I went downstairs and read Francis and G.K. Chesterton.
Well, remember what the third thing was wrong with the world? Feminism?
Yeah, it was bad.
It was bad. I remember because you said, well, Chesterton could never imagine, government getting as big as it is and business getting... Yeah, he could, but think of how big feminism has gotten.
It's really big, yeah.
And it's probably one of the hardest things to deal with in the modern world because it's been so pervasive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
and
hard.
Talk about a war on the family. It's the feminists, their anger is all about wanting to be men and not wanting to do the thing that God uniquely made them to do that men cannot do. Yeah. Chester says women have always been able to do all the things that men can do. Sometimes they have to because men aren't doing them or can't do them. But there's one thing that women can do that men can't do, and that's be a mother. No one else can be a mother. But they're trying to even blur those lines now. Just think of how messed up it is.
All right, so did he write about, maybe I'm showing an ignorance on history, but contraception?
Yeah,
was that around?
It was already being proposed. In fact, it's in his book on St. Francis of Assisi, which we were just talking about, that has one of the most astounding lines. He says, the moment sex ceases to be a servant, it becomes a tyrant.
Oh, nice.
And you know who read that book as a young priest? A priest by the name of Giovanni Battisti Montini.
Paul VI?
Paul VI.
Look at that. Wow.
Who wrote
Humanae Vitae.
All the arguments in Humanae Vitae. Chesterton made all those same arguments 40, 50 years earlier.
Wow.
That contraception will lead to abortion. It will lead to sexual perversion. It'll lead to divorce. It'll lead to the abuse of women. It'll because it'll just make women into objects is what it is, and that's what contraception will do. As soon as you separate sex from birth, it becomes an unnatural thing. And talk about the dead thing goes with the stream, only the living thing goes against it. Paul VI was the only living thing in the world when he wrote that encyclical. Even the church was against him.
Oh, yeah.
All the pressure was the other way.
Oh, yeah.
But he stood up for the truth, stood up for Catholic teaching.
Athanasius Contra Mundum.
Yeah.
He was like the only guy.
Yeah, yeah. And so,
which to me, that was like Holy Spirit protecting the papacy.
It was, but it was a courageous man who knew he had the whole world on his shoulders, and it's the most important encyclical of the 20th century. But he was a Chesterton fan, Connor, and he read St. Francis of Assisi. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of contraception.
Yeah.
Chesterton never had kids.
Right. And it's interesting. He was this great defender of the family and this lover of children. The great tragedy of his life and of Francis, his wife, was that they couldn't conceive. And they did some visits with doctors and tried to figure out why she was unable to conceive. And they did operations on her. And
could have been him. We don't know, right?
Well, don't know.
I mean, you never know.
You never know.
You never
right.
know.
And so they couldn't conceive. And so when they realized, and they'd planned on having a large family. They talked about having 7 kids, And when they realized they weren't going to have any children of their own, they basically started filling their home with other people's children. They had the equivalent of foster children stay with them, and would host no adults allowed parties at their home. And he loved having the chaos of children around him. And he has a great description of writing a newspaper column while he's tripping over children and they're demanding whether it was just for Sally to blow out his unlawfully lit match.
Well, I mean, maybe in a way it was his cross, but it was a gift to the church.
Amen.
Because if he had had a house full of 7 kids all day, he probably wouldn't have written so much.
That's right. I mean, it is obviously God's will.
Yeah.
And when they had different secretaries work for them throughout his career, but when in 1926 they hired a woman named Dorothy Collins, and she, in essence, was their surrogate daughter for the rest of their lives. She lived with them, and they just had a great devotion to her. And so after he converted, his wife converted, and then Dorothy also converted after that. And she became the literary executor of their estate.
Nice.
Yeah.
For 17 years, I've been making ebooks and audiobooks of this amazing TAN library. And it's always been frustrating to me that I had to go to Kindle or Audible or wherever to get my own books from TAN. But now, finally, we have the TAN digital app. We have 900 plus ebooks and 300 plus audiobooks. These amazing writings of the saints, these spiritual classics, the most important books ever composed. The TAN digital app is the perfect place to where you can listen to this amazing stuff in the car or when you're on the treadmill or whatever you're doing. I'm personally using this. I love it. I know you will too. Go to Google Play or the App Store to get the TAN digital app. Do you have any sense of what his daily life was like?
Yeah, because it's actually described quite well by Dorothy Collins herself, that he would rise late, and it was always Francis who had to make sure that he got up and got dressed and got to the breakfast table and go through the appointments of the day. They had a blackboard in the kitchen saying, "Lest we forget," and then got him into his study to start writing. He usually had an evening appointment to give a talk, usually, or a meeting with an editorial board or something like that. So when they lived outside of London, he'd take the train into London and be in London for the evening, either speaking or at a meeting, come back and work late into the night.
Did he?
Yeah.
You can get a lot done when everyone else is asleep.
That's right.
I usually try to do that in the morning, but
Yeah.
I kind of am jealous of the late night people because if you're in the zone, let's say it's like 10 o'clock and everyone's asleep, and you're in the zone, like you can write all night if you want to.
Yeah, you can.
But you can't like wake up at 3 a.m. to get in the zone. Like, you can't do that. You can't really force yourself.
Unless something wakes you up and says, get in there and start writing right now. Then so then you start. I think it's important to try to do, for writers, to do as much writing as they can before breakfast, before the first cup of hot stuff, whatever they drink.
Yeah.
Because once you start fussing around to make stuff, but if you start right in writing, and if you leave some water in the well, pick up where you left off, that's a very effective
neurologists have actually explained this. So the reason that people, by and large, are the best writers in the morning, as soon as they wake up, it's not because the world is quiet. That's just an after effect. It's because your brain is still slightly in a dream state. And those same chemicals that are producing dreams are still firing around in there, floating around in your brain. It helps you be more creative. I love that answer. And also the explanation of, in the morning, your mind is like a calm pond that's like glass. All through the day, little pebbles are dropped in.
Yes.
And so by night, it's all rough. And
so,
but it's interesting that people like him, he probably escaped into the late evening hours and was able to crank stuff out.
Yeah. And just, it's absolutely incredible how much he wrote. But so it's only during the day that he had his secretary there to dictate to. And he would often write by dictating. And then,
you think that's how he did a lot of his articles?
Yeah, and of course the great stories, the unbelievable stories, Conor, is that he could write longhand an essay and dictate a different essay to his secretary at the same time. He could literally write 2 essays at once.
That's incredible.
I know.
That's incredible.
I said that.
I know you. That's why you said it. Yeah. It's because it's incredible. You said it's incredible because it is incredible.
Yeah, no, it is. It's incredible. And it's not just one secretary that testified to that. He had several secretaries throughout his career. They all said the same thing. He could, and it wasn't that he'd write and then he was writing while dictating.
Man, I can barely play the guitar and sing at the same time.
I know. There's a lot of things I can't do at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So that was kind of like his daily life.
Yeah.
What was Frances's daily life like? I mean, what was it like being married to this guy?
Yeah, she was his support all the way. She did take care of him all the way. He totally depended on her, but in a way she depended on him too. And it's a wonderful relationship of mutual support and dependence. And when he died, her most poignant words were, I can't believe he doesn't need me anymore.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. And George Bernard Shaw said that she died of widowhood.
Mm.
Yeah, so
what did Chesterton die of?
He died of congestive heart failure.
Okay.
Yeah. He actually visited Lourdes a few months before his death. I think he knew he was dying.
Really?
Yeah.
How old was he?
62.
That's not too old.
Well, here's the thing. If he had lived longer, my life would be even more difficult because of all those other things I'd be hunting down that he'd written.
That's right. That's right. Wow.
He gave us just the right of about material, which is too much.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting stories I did think earlier about asking you, did he have a mental breakdown early in life? And can you explain that?
Yeah. So he had a physical breakdown.
Okay, not mental.
Not a mental breakdown.
Okay.
And I think it's sometimes been described as a nervous breakdown, but it wasn't a mental thing. It was his body just physically collapsed. He was giving a talk.
When was it?
This was in 1914.
Was he, how old roughly?
He was 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was 40 years old.
Okay.
And he was giving a talk, and this was probably at his largest weight too.
Mm.
And we should talk about his weight. He was obviously had a problem with the retaining fluids. The eyewitness accounts was that he did not overeat. He wasn't a glutton.
A glutton, yeah.
No, but he clearly had some sort of a glandular problem that caused him to retain fluids. and so he was really overweight at this point. He was probably 300 pounds or more. And he was giving this talk, and he started getting foggy during the talk, and got on the train to get back home, and basically he collapsed into his bed so hard that the bed broke, and really went into kind of a semi-comatose state.
Yes.
And they kept him kind of semi-sedated so that he could recover. So he was down for almost 6 months during this recovery.
What do you think that means, down?
They literally would not let him get out of bed. He was coming in and out of consciousness the whole time, and just a couple of words would come out. At one point, Francis says to him, "Do you just want to know how aware he was of things? If he'd had a stroke or whatever it was, because there's never been quite a clear medical explanation of what happened." But it wasn't a psychological thing, because that's the one thing people say, it was a mental breakdown. It was a physical breakdown.
Okay.
She said to him, "Gilbert, do you know who's taking care of you?" Wanted to know if he recognized her, and he said, "God." Yeah. And then as he was coming out of it, a nurse washed his hands, and he said, "What damned impertinence."
He's fine.
Yeah. So that's when they knew he was coming out of it. He basically rose from the dead at Easter. Is what's so amazing. He was, and once he came out of it, he was completely mentally sharp again, and just picked up where he left off as a writer and a speaker. But he lost a considerable amount of weight during that time, and really was never overweight again until the very end of his life.
Mm-hmm.
He was always a large man.
Yeah.
He just was physically large, but the gargantuan was only 2 times in his life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. All right. So, what else about his works, or do you want to?
We're going through those books here. I had mentioned Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah, we did that one.
Yeah. So those two books on the saints are very important. Next, I think we are required to mention the Father Brown stories.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
There's 2 things to say about those. One is that he basically changed the whole course of detective fiction when he wrote those. It was just all Sherlock Holmes, right? And Arthur Conan Doyle was the premier detective story writer, and every detective wanted to be Sherlock Holmes, and every detective story writer wanted to have a super sleuth.
Yeah.
Well, Chesterton invents the underdog detective.
Yeah.
The guy who looks like he's not gonna be anything. He's certainly not gonna figure this one out, but he's got some real disadvantages. And even, Sherlock Holmes always makes the grand entrance. Both the doors open up when Sherlock Holmes comes in. When Chesterton introduces Father Brown in a story, he'll say, "And there was also a Catholic priest there." It's like all of a sudden, "Oh, what are you doing here?" He's been there the whole time probably, but we finally notice him. And what Father Brown does is he notices the clue that no one else notices. So he really puts everything on equal footing for the first time, so that the reader and the characters all have the same information available to them, and anybody can figure out the solution except only Father Brown does, because he sees the one thing that we all miss.
Which is what Chesterton did with everything.
With everything, exactly. He always shocks us with what we already know.
With the obvious, yeah.
And so that's why he's such a great detective story writer, and that became just a beloved character instantly from the time he created the first Father Brown story.
Did he make a lot of his? I think I recall something like they having trouble paying the bills, and so like Francis walks in and says, "Hey, Gilbert, time to write another Father Brown mystery."
It's close to that.
We got to pay the bills.
So it was when he started his own newspaper, GK's Weekly. It was running red the whole time, and so when he needed money to pay the printers, that's when he'd write a Father Brown story.
Oh, wow.
That's something.
Yeah.
It was so in other words, a lot of people had to die to keep that newspaper.
Now, have you seen the TV show? Do you watch it?
I don't watch it. I have seen it. People ask me about it. I said it's based on a character with the same name as Father Brown. But God bless them. They've taken a beloved character, and just like Sherlock Holmes went through all these permutations too, right?
Yeah.
And the priest is a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy for its success. I
Right.
hope it makes people read Chesterton.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. All right. So the Father Brown Mysteries. I've never read a single one. Never. My wife did. She loved them.
You should try reading one, see what happens.
So, all right. So he had his journals or his weekly articles. He wrote for the London Times.
The Illustrated London News.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's and that he was a regular columnist for 31 years for the Illustrated London News.
That's a lot.
And the guy who took over from him after he died wrote for the next 40 years. So between the two of them, they wrote for 71 years.
Who was that? Who took over?
Yeah, he had a name. I'll tell you his name at some point.
Okay.
Maybe I'll mail it to you.
All right.
I'll think of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's impressive though. I mean, that's some big shoes to fill.
Yeah. So it was a prestigious job to have as the regular columnist.
So he would write sometimes 2 a day because he would write one for Illustrated London Times
and
Illustrated London News,
and then other
for
papers,
other papers, including his own.
Exactly.
So he was. Is it fair to say that did he average like maybe not 2 every day, but just 1.5 a day?
I would say that's fair to say. He every GK's Weekly, he contributed at least 4 or 5 articles to that, right? And then, his Illustrated London newspaper. But for a while, he was a regular columnist for the Daily News, for the Daily Express, for other London papers, and then the one-offs that he'd write for too. And at the end of his life, he was doing radio broadcasts, and they became columns then.
I've heard his voice. I think a talk he gave at Notre Dame. Is that right? Did he come and speak at Notre Dame?
He spoke at Notre Dame.
There's an audio recording.
Yeah, that's when he was at Holy Cross.
Okay.
But he spoke. He gave 6 weeks of lectures at Notre Dame.
Wow.
In 1930.
So I've heard his voice.
Yeah.
But it's high pitched, and it surprised me.
Well, you know what happened, Connor, is that it seemed high pitched, but if you didn't know, if you weren't looking at him, it would sound like a normal voice.
Right.
But it seemed high pitched because he's so big.
Yeah. Okay.
And his voice comes out normal.
So I'm not the only one that says this.
Yeah.
So.
People, but the people who heard him on the radio thought it was a very rich, melodious voice, not a high pitched voice at all.
Yeah.
And that he had a natural radio speaking voice. And he did change the nature of radio speaking because up until then, the announcers were all talking like this, like they were talking in a stadium.
Yeah.
And that's the way they talked on the radio, the same way.
Okay.
Whereas he would have either Francis or Dorothy sit across from him while he was giving his talk and just talk in a conversation like this, because he realized people sat in their living room and listened to the radio.
Yeah.
And he was going to be in their living room with them. He should speak in a conversational manner.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. And then other radio speakers adapted that style.
All right, I hate questions like this, but I'm going to ask it. Do you think he would have had a podcast if he lived today, or would he have stayed with the written word? I mean, if you do radio, but those were written remarks that he would prepare, right?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a great extemporaneous speaker. Like all those lectures at Notre Dame, he'd go up to the podium with just a little scrap of paper, and then someone looked at one of the papers afterwards, and it was just had some drawings,
doodling.
So he's giving talks on Victorian authors, and he's just completely extemporizing. And he seldom read a speech, very seldom. He's always just off the cuff because it was just flowing out of him. It was as if he was writing while he was talking.
Yeah.
The same thing. So I think he when he did GK's Weekly, he said everybody should have their own newspaper.
Yeah.
And think about,
I disagree.
Well, we do now because everybody does have their own newspaper.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Now they do.
Yeah.
Instagram or Twitter.
The blog,
blogs,
back in the day. And then the podcast is now everybody has their own television show too.
Yeah.
But I think he'd like the democratic nature of that.
Yeah, get the ideas out.
And everybody has the right to do it.
So did you follow the whole big blow up with Joe Rogan and Kevin? What's the dude's name? That elite butthead that was on the Rogan show that got so much press when he was on there debating with the historian.
Douglas Murray.
Yeah, Douglas Murray versus Nicholas. They were on Joe Rogan. Brian talks about this all the time, Kevin. But
Something Smith, right? Oh, Dave Smith.
yes, Dave Smith, right? So all right, so Joe Rogan has Dave Smith, who is an amateur historian and who's like got his own podcast and researching World War II and just doing his own thing. And you had Douglas Murray, who is kind of now regarded as like a very elitist, and the British accent doesn't help, with his reputation. But Rogan had both these guys. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea.
So he had both these guys on. Like this, I actually recommend that. I'm going to send you this link.
Okay.
I actually recommend you listen to this 3-hour thing because here's what it represents. Douglas Murray, very high caliber journalist, even though he acts like he has like PhDs or something. The argument is whether uneducated, unqualified, non-specialists like Dave Smith should be really commenting on anything. The teaching of the people needs to be left up to true experts. And so it's like do the ivory tower experts have a monopoly on ideas or not? That's the debate. And again, like you could even like take out the conclusion of the debate. It's just the mode of the debate shows that this ivory tower guy kind of does represent this elitist class that a lot of people today, because of the power of podcasts, are like pushing back and saying, no, wait a minute, I have a right to an opinion. I don't have to have a PhD in history to talk about Adolf Hitler. I don't have to have that. I don't have to have a PhD in Middle Eastern politics to have an opinion about the Gaza Strip. Like I'm allowed to communicate and share and contribute to common knowledge, versus the guy saying, no, you're spreading dangerous things because you don't have a PhD from Harvard. That's like what this thing became about. And it was good because like the common man, like we were talking about the common man, like hears this on Rogan, millions, tens of millions of people hear this and they're like, oh, we do not like the elitist. We like the average guy who has opinions on things and is allowed to have opinions on things. It totally would have been like a Chesterton moment in the sense because he was this generalist that thinks the average man can tap in and have opinions and have insight into things.
That's exactly what
versus
Chesterton
the
says.
Ivy League, ivory tower kind of person that really looks down upon most human beings.
Yeah, well, you have absolutely epitomized Chesterton's argument right there, Conor. You said exactly that the Chesterton says everybody is entitled to have an opinion. They can read the information and make their conclusions about it, and they're entitled to say what their conclusions are. And also, what he didn't refer to them as to the ivory tower. He always referred to them as the German professors.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, the German professors were basically the exception to everything. They were the exception. They didn't represent the common man. They didn't represent common sense. They really usually represented really strange ideas. And yet they would be the influential ones in our educational institutions. He said that all of the Western institutions had given in to the German professors. And think about that. Nietzsche. Why did Nietzsche take over the colleges?
Yeah.
He's absolute crackpot. He's absolutely insane, but he represents the downfall of German philosophy, which infected everything.
Yeah.
So everything you said right now sounds exactly what Chesterton's position.
Well, it's happening. I think the reason I came up with that is because this new, like Walter Cronkite, like everything was filtered to the American people through a couple of channels.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
And with the creation of this, where dummy Conor in a little office, can with his younger brother have a podcast and do this. This is a new phenomenon.
It is.
It's a new phenomenon, and if my ideas are worth anything, then people can listen and subscribe, and they can hit the notification bell, and they can leave positive comments, and you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and all your favorite platforms.
Go to chesterton.org. Chesterton.org. If you go to chesterton.com, you'll get hydraulic valves. So go to chesterton.org for GK Chesterton.
Right. So
let's say it one more time. Chesterton.org.
Chesterton.org.
Yeah,
okay, good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there it is. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's it. Right. So all right, let's see how much you know about Chesterton. What's his dog's name?
Well, he had two dogs.
Oh, okay, he does know. Of course, he knows. He knows everything.
He had Quoodle.
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 Okay.
And Winkle. And they were both Scottish Terriers.
Yeah, there's one right there.
He also had a cat. Oh yeah, that's Winkle in that picture there.
All right.
He also had a cat named Perky.
Really?
Perky, and he also had a donkey
No, did he?
Yeah, he had a pet donkey named Trotsky because he wouldn't walk ski.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, now, what do you have any? This is the most important question. Why are you laughing?
Because anything that's important should be taken lightly.
The most important question that I really want to know is, did he have a particular brand of cigar that he liked? Because I'm a big time lover of cigars.
Yeah. Here's the answer to that question. He did not.
Okay.
He smoked what was ever available.
Okay.
He did. And so usually people would give him gifts of cigars, so those are the ones he'd
He
smoke.
smoked them, yeah,
He
right.
probably didn't think much about before he bought them. He did mention, that certain countries had really bad cigars, but he smoked them anyway.
Right, yeah.
So there was nothing high.
See, he was not an elitist even with his cigars.
No, not
Wow.
at all. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
He didn't drink cocktails. He drank wine and beer. He preferred red wine, claret, as the English call it, which would be the same as a Bordeaux.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was, and he'd actually fill up a beaker, a pint glass with red wine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But he said beer, if you're very thirsty, there's nothing better than beer. But he was not a great beer drinker, but wine was his preferred drink.
All right, so strategically I'm leading you somewhere. So speaking of beer, if he was sitting in pubs, who might he be sitting with and enjoying?
Who would he be sitting with in the pub?
Yeah. Who was he hanging out with?
Well, obviously, you keep wanting to bring up Belloc.
There you go. I got it. I got it.
So there it is. Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about Belloc? Well, no. Let's talk about some other books here now. Well,
if he loved Belloc so much, do you too?
I love Belloc.
Okay, good.
But you know what? Belloc's just gonna have to go get his own society, okay? Because I can't do their heavy lifting for him. Okay.
Fair enough. Is there a Belloc Society?
Yeah, there actually is. It's not very well organized.
No one's trying to get him canonized.
No, they're not doing much with it. The guy who was running it in England was not even a Catholic, but just loved Belloc. Yeah.
But he doesn't have that saint flavor to him, good man, right?
He's incredible, just a genius. But you're trying to get me to talk about Belloc. That's what you're trying to do right now, and it's not going to happen.
Okay.
So the thing that we also have to mention, we talked about the Father Brown stories. We also have to mention Chesterton's poetry.
Oh,
he was a great poet. He was an important poet. In fact, some of his obituaries said he'll be remembered as a poet.
Interesting.
A lot of obituaries are wrong about a lot of things, but that was what.
Isn't his famous one like the Battle of Lepanto or something? Is that it?
Is that Lepanto,
it?
and then the Ballad of the White Horse.
White Horse.
Those are the two famous poems. And then that little poem on the donkey is also a famous poem too.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the donkey. We're coming up to Palm Sunday here a little bit. Yeah. He says, when fishes flew and forests walked, and figs grew upon thorn, some moment when the moon was blood, then surely I was born, with monstrous head and sickening cry, and ears like errant wings, the devil's walking parody of all four-footed things, the tattered outlaw of the earth, of ancient crooked will. Starve, scourge, deride me, I'm dumb. I keep my secret still. Fools, for I also had my hour, one far fierce hour and sweet. There was a shout about my ears and palms before my feet.
Man, that is so good.
That's so good.
Oh, and your delivery wasn't bad. That was awesome. It was awesome, Dale. It was awesome. Man, that is beautiful. I mean, it's like I don't usually follow poetry, but I followed that.
Yeah.
I followed that one. I got it,
And the donkey, it just epitomizes everything about Chester himself. He's this humble creature, the humble, rejected creature, and yet be careful before you curse that creature because he carried Christ.
Oh, yeah, it is. And it is like an awkward, weird animal.
Yeah.
That is almost like, what's its use, But it carried Christ twice.
Right.
But that's a beautiful poem. I'm gonna have to go back. And that's You know, that's not Chesterton like flipping stuff upside down. That's just like piercing, powerful, beautiful language.
Yeah.
You know, that's really good. Thank you for citing that. That was, man. You can cite it too, man. Gosh, that's impressive. It's impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, so to kind of begin to wrap up, what would you like to leave us about Chesterton? Okay, if you were giving one last speech about Chesterton, and then like, you know, you walk off the stage and you say, okay, I'm never going to speak about Chesterton again. What would you want to say about him? What would those final parting words to planet Earth about G.K. Chesterton be?
Well, you know, humility always wins the day. And here's Chester with his incredible mental gifts and his winning personality and his ability to, you know, hold an audience captive and to write incredible stuff. And he was always urged to spend more time with serious literature because he should be writing for the ages and not be writing journalism. But he cared about justice. That's why he wrote for the daily newspapers, because he wanted to fix a world that was things were wrong with it. There were things wrong with the world. He wanted to fix that world because that's what we have a duty, you know, to carry out justice. He would always give the Catholic reading of Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God and his justice, instead of his righteousness with the Protestants to it. His justice. And then all these other things will be taken care of. All these other things will be yours as well. Yes. So, you know, he wasn't just locked in his cell thinking. He was trying to really do something. He spent his life trying to give justice for the common man, because that's how you create a just society. That's how you save Christian civilization. But he did it by being humble. Yes. And when you're humble, then you can do God's will.
Amazing.
And I think he should be raised to the altar because, first of all, we need more lay saints. We need more married saints. And we definitely need more fat saints and more cigar smoking saints.
Oh, man. If Chesterton, and maybe he did from heaven, if he was going to pick someone to carry up his cause and to be his modern day mouthpiece and the apostle of Chesterton, he would pick Dale Ahlquist. No doubt about it.
Well, I disagree, but thank you. Thank you very kindly. God bless you. Thank you.
You're perfect. You're perfect for this job. And I'm just, everyone that knows even a little about you and a little bit about Chesterton knows that Chesterton is really, really proud of Dale Ahlquist. He's really proud of you. So, G.K. Chesterton, pray for us.
Pray for us.
Thanks, Dale.
My pleasure, Connor.
All right. Hey, thanks guys for checking out the Conor Gallagher Show. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, or comment, or whatever you got to do to support it. And I appreciate that very much.